but I got look. Again, that's a bright pink leotard and bright pink leggings before lycra, and a length of glittery fabric that I tied around my waist. And this was my first, it was a disco on a boat, which I thought was the most exotic thing ever. And as you can see, I had a great time. So this is one of the photo shoots. Right, first of all, the makeup is several shades lighter than I actually. That's number one. So I look like a clown. Secondly, I love that tracksuit. But thirdly, my feet were at the time were 7.5, and they were size 7, and my feet were killing me. Look at that. That's a metaphor for parts of my life, isn't it? Smiling through the pain. Yeah, I don't even know why I put that in. Only to say that, no, I can't remember, ignore that. Oh no, so that's more modelling. That was in Barbados, and very clever photographer, and it was Swimwear Illustrated. We were staying at the same hotel as the models, and they were tiny and pert, and they wanted a bit of variety, so the photographer asked me if I would do some modelling. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know, and they said, oh, we'll give you some swimsuits, and I was like, yeah, sure. Don't ask to be paid, would you? And can I just say they still owe me a swimsuit? Yes, exactly, I didn't even learn. I'll come back to that. Right, I'm going back. So, have a look at that. School went. I'd now set my sights on London. My art teacher asked me, basically, I didn't want to go to technical college and I didn't want to get a job. So I wanted to stay in education as long as possible. So when my art teacher told me, he said, oh, what do you really love doing? I said, I really love dance. I just want to dance. And he said, you know, you can do a degree in dance. I was like, oh, okay. So he sent me to, in those days, no internet, guys. So there was a big book, a UCAS book, and you looked through and found what you wanted, basically, and you got the audition. So I auditioned for Laban in London, and I auditioned for Leicester, Poly, and I got into both. I have a funny story about my audition, but we'll skip over that. I got into both, but the reason I went to Leicester is because I could live up there. It was cheaper, and they would give me accommodation. In London, my mum was like, there's no way I'm letting you move to London. So, and you had to find somewhere to live. It was too much of a risk, so that didn't happen. By this time, I was really into sewing. I loved sewing. I loved fashion. I loved experimenting. I was always wearing something that I put together. I remember one time I made an outfit with it was a black satin skirt with a zip that came up and off. And I had a top that I'd sewn in sequins, rich. Do you think my mother let me wear it? I never, ever wore it. It was a great outfit, but no, that was not going to happen. So I went to uni. I loved uni. I loved uni because I met some very interesting people. I latched myself very firmly to the side of the only other black girl on my course, Hilary. And yeah, she taught me how to plait my hair at night. I remember the first time I did it, for those of you who don't know, with Afro-Caribbean hair, African hair, it can be very tight, and so in order to get it to go into the afro I wanted it to go into, you had to plait it at night and then take it out and comb it out in the morning. So the first night she taught me, I took 2.5 hours to do that much. My fingers were like that. I got up the next morning, because I'm in ballet like this, okay, and my afro did that. I was very proud. I did get better at it, but maybe that's why I've got lots. I don't know. So yeah, went through uni, had a stint in a fashion retail store after I finished uni and hated it. So I left there And then a job came up near Banbury, a job teaching. I basically read the description wrong. I thought it was full-time teaching dance. But when I got there, it turned out I was teaching like 1 hour after school, 3 days a week. So my salary was not great at all. So the first time I got my pay packet and opened it, I burst into tears because of course I was expecting so much more. And I went to the head and I spoke to him about it and he said, well, you know, there's not much we can do, sorry. And then 3 weeks later, the music teacher died. This is actually quite sad. But they turned all the music lessons into dance lessons. So my salary tripled and I was able to continue to teach dance. It's actually a very sad story, but it worked for me because it meant that I realised that actually I'm quite good at this teaching work. So I did my postgrad. We'll gloss over that. And I started teaching, and where did I come? London! Came to London to teach, and got a job straight away. In those days, it's something called Inner London Education Authority, and you were interviewed by a pool, in a pool, kind of, not in an actual pool, a pool of teachers, and they farmed you out to whichever school needed someone. So they sent me to Langdon Park in East London, and I taught 1.5 years there, teaching dance full time, and I was very lucky because I was one of the only people on my cohort who was able to teach dance and not have to teach my second subject, which is art, but don't do it anymore. I did that for 1.5 years, and then I continued to teach. I had a bit of time out. I went to Finland to teach for 3 months. Months, loved it. I have a lifelong love of Helsinki in particular. And then I came back and I started to build my relationship with my partner, and I had my 2 wonderful daughters who were in there. And I got stuck into teaching. Full-time dance, a bit of drama. And then one day, the deputy head of the school I was at, which was North Westminster in West London. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
Literally, he said, how would you fancy being head of year? Acting head of year. So I was like, alright. I mean, I spoke to my partner about it, and he said, well, if you're good at it, you can carry on doing it, and if you're rubbish at it, you don't have to do it anymore because it's just acting. So I started to be head of year, and I absolutely loved it. Like, the first week, it was the hardest I'd ever worked in teaching, and the most fun I'd ever had. I loved it. I put my all into it. That, for me, was what teaching was all about. Kids can't learn if they're not happy, and my job was to find out why they weren't happy so they could learn. It was absolutely brilliant. Honestly, you got to know the kids, you got to know the families, you got to do home visits, you learned all the gossip, you broke up fights, you solved bullying, you solved problems. That's my love, honestly. So my first breakdown, one Sunday, I had a lot, before the internet, so no emails or anything, so you had to, whenever you did things, you had to write it all up and then you had to photocopy it, and I had a lot to do for Monday, so I decided to go into work on Sunday. Now, I lived in Forest Hill at the time, and I was driving to Westminster, and it was in the days when there's no congestion charge, you could drive practically anywhere. And I drove to work and got in, and the photocopier wasn't working. So I got in my car, and I came home, and on Westminster Bridge, I could feel myself start to hyperventilate and start to panic. And I'd never experienced this before, so I didn't know what was happening. But I had the foresight to pull over, again, in the times when you could do that, on Westminster Bridge. And I burst into tears, and I sobbed, because I honestly thought that the world would end if I didn't do my photocopying. I'll just let that resonate. I called my partner, he just said, come home, it's fine, come home. It'll be fine. And of course it was fine, because, hello, it's photocopying. And the next day I went in, and I, got on with it. And And I continued to do this. I realised my habit was to work and work and work and work and work and work and work, and then when it was those things called holiday, I would be ill. So I'd be ill for a week or 2 weeks or 6 weeks or the first 2 weeks of holiday or whatever, and then I'd get back in and I'd work because I was very competitive, and I had to be first. And people kept praising me, so I wanted more of that, and that's deep, and we won't go into that, but I've had therapy, so I know what's going on. Okay? And okay. All right, so that was the first. My relationship progressed. I started a business. My business was making bags, African print bags. My partner, his mother is from Sierra Leone. She had lots and lots and lots of beautiful coloured fabrics which I was drawn to. And so I was always being given fabric, and I decided to make some bags, 6 bags, exactly the same design. My eldest school had sent a letter home asking parents if they wanted to have a stall for a tenner. I was like, yeah, I'll have some of that. So one summer's day, I think my mum baked some coconut bread and came down. I think Kareem did a nice little sign. We had some music, and I had an order form. I sold all the bags, and I made loads of orders, and I thought, I can do this. I can do this. This will be good. And meanwhile, when I was putting all my energies into that, I realised the reason I was doing it is because my relationship was spiralling downhill. I noticed that the attention I craved from my partner, I wasn't getting it. So I turned to sewing, and I turned to my business, and I turned to making sure that I could keep my head above water, I'm going to call it. That's what was going on. Breakup time. So that was quite dramatic. I'll gloss over it in the sense that the reasons we broke up was because he was having an affair and he was having his own crises, I guess. I'm being charitable now. And he got into drugs. So there was a point where I decided I couldn't do this anymore. I stuck it out and I stuck it out and I stuck it out, and it was a toxic relationship. And then one day I got up and I decided that I didn't want my girls to think that this was a normal relationship. There was no way that my girls were going to grow up and go into a relationship just like ours, because it wasn't a relationship at all. And that's when I started the ball rolling. Fast forward 2 years, second breakdown. I didn't see this coming at all. I had toothache, really, really, really bad toothache. The kind of toothache that in the end they had to take the tooth out. And I had to have time off work, and I never had time off work because I was really good and I always went in and I did my job and everybody said I was great. So I found that really difficult in itself. I felt guilty even though I was in pain. And when I had my tooth taken out and I was given these fantastic painkillers, and the painkillers started to wear off, and I realised I had to go back to work, and that's when the tears came. And I